back here on KCAA Radio. This is Patrick Franz, your host, the Note Mentor, and this is the Real Men of Real Estate radio show. I have my show on the second Sunday of every month at 1 p.m., so be sure to tune in where I'm going to bring you guys amazing expert speakers. Usually, today you just got me, but I really want y'all to have a well-rounded education when it comes to what it means to become a note investor. So remember, we're becoming the bank and we're owning the mortgage. We're collecting mortgage payments, not rent payments. We don't have to deal with the terrible T's, the tenants, the termites, the trash, and these kinds of things. And so, this is what I talk about on my show. And I always have a little disclaimer right at the beginning of the show where I say, these are just opinions. It's either my opinion based on my life experiences or my guests' opinions. And by no means are we trying to give investment advice or solicit investments. Nor are we giving any legal advice. And so what we always recommend, folks, is that if you're going to make any type of an investment, you go and seek the proper legal advice and proper legal counsel before you get involved in any type of an investment, because every time you invest in anything, there's always going to be some type of risk. Nothing's perfect in life. And so seek the right folks, get the right professionals, and get the right legal advice before you make any type of investments. But on my show, we talk about mortgage note investing. I want you folks to understand what that means, and more so why I think they're the sexiest side of real estate investing, and possibly one of the best investments that's ever been created. But today I want to get a little personal with you, and it's why I didn't book a guest. I want you to be a little personable with me, and I want you to get to know your host here. And the reason why is I want to get a message out that everybody and anybody can do what I've done in the past few years of my life, and anybody out there can become financially free in a few short years. And I want to get you to know who I am a little bit and how I've done all of that. And then we're going to get into, again, the notes and why I think it's very sexy. And I think every single savvy investor out there should absolutely think about owning mortgage notes in their portfolio. I don't mean to steer people away from other types of investments, but hopefully on today's show, you'll understand why perhaps mortgage note investing could be one of the best investment vehicles, at least that I've ever seen. And so I strongly urge folks to get into it, to start to understand it and make it a part of their portfolio. And you won't regret it. You won't regret it, as they say. Today, guys, I wanted to give you a little background on your host here, Patrick Franz, and why I ended up with the name The Note Mentor and everything like that. And certainly not a brag session, but I want everybody to relate and understand that wherever you're at, you can move forward, change some habits, learn some new skills, provide some more value to the marketplace out there, and drastically change your life financially in a few short years. Because I don't know if y'all folks out there who are listening ever felt like me. I'm sure you might be able to relate, but I think everybody, their entire lives, since they figured out what money was, have wanted some, and so I think that a lot of folks want financial freedom. A lot of people want to have some wealth and not be so worried about money on a consistent basis. And let me tell you, it's okay to not know where to go. I mean, when I was coming up in the world, and I thought, well, first of all, you could have a good job. That's what we were always taught. You could have a good job, a good steady job, and that can get you some financial freedom. But I think what we all realized, and some are still realizing this, is that with a job, we're trading our time for money. Okay. And you consistently have to go and trade time for more money. And there's nothing wrong with that. And some people love their jobs, and I certainly did love mine. Heck, I was a a telemarketer and such, and I'll get into that, which, it's a fun job, but boy, oh boy, working 40, 50, 60 hours a week for that money, for that paycheck every Friday can be difficult. I also thought maybe folks, you could work your way up in a company and not just be one of the workers, but maybe somehow work your way up into, say, upper level management or something like that, where, those guys, they're making the big bucks, right? The guys at the top. And I tried that. Many of you folks are doing just that right now. And there's nothing wrong with that either. And I'm not dogging this stuff, but I'm just trying to talk about financial freedom and what that means. Because the only thing I thought besides a job or working my way up in some sort of a corporate company was to hit it big. And when I mean hit it big, I mean like the guys that, they get signed with the NFL or the PGA Golf Tour, or they come out with a hit song or something like that. And, I kind of realized that although I'm talented in many ways, I'm nowhere near as good of a golfer as it would take to get recruited to the PGA Tour. And, I'm 5'7". So we all know I'm not going to go join the National Basketball Association anytime soon. So if you guys can relate to me in searching for financial freedom out there in the world, and trying to just grind it out and trying to make as much money as you can and live the best life you can, and provide the best life financially for your children and all of that. And I started out telemarketing. These are just these jobs we get when we're young. And I thought, well, I ought to get into sales rather than being a waiter, which I was, but I didn't like being a waiter. I didn't like being a busser and cleaning up after folks. And so I decided I wanted to try telemarketing. I thought there was more money in sales. And, that eventually evolved into venture capital, which is just telemarketing on steroids, really, working in a phone room as a phone grunt. And then of course tried to get into high ticket sales here in San Diego, California, selling home remodeling, and driving from home to home, and trying to help people fix their roofs or get new windows or remodel their kitchen and those kinds of things. And that was who I was. And I thought I was going to be stuck there pretty much the rest of my life. And I, trading these 8 and 10-hour days for my paychecks. And I don't know if anybody listening can relate, but it seems like you're just in a never ending spin cycle. And so, when I got into that venture capital telemarketing job, I had to learn about investments. Not enough to really be a pro at anything, but I had to know what I was talking about to savvy investors over the telephone. So if anybody listening can relate, I had to learn what stocks and bonds were, and most people know what those are. I learned a little bit about commodities, trading commodities. We all know about investing in gold and silver. People understand what mutual funds and 401ks and IRAs are. And, how about investing into some sort of a fund or a REIT, or, people putting money just in a savings account so that they don't lose it. But there's also in there house flipping and owning rentals. And I don't know about you folks listening, but out of all the things we talked about, stocks and bonds and commodities and gold and silver, which are all great investments, it seemed like a lot of folks were gravitating towards house flipping and owning a lot of rental properties. And so, of course, I wanted to know what that was all about. And thank goodness I had some folks that had been experienced landlords in the past. And it's always good to learn from your elders and to learn from other people's mistakes so you don't have to go through those. And what I kept hearing about being a landlord and accumulating more and more rental properties was that it was wonderful and it could be very profitable, but we're dealing with those terrible T's. And when they talk about landlords dealing with the terrible T's, they're talking about the tenants, the termites, perhaps, the trash, and other troubles associated with being a property owner, like property taxes and insurance and liability and major repairs. I mean, heck, roofing and things like that is not cheap these days. And so I figured I really didn't want to be a landlord. Okay. And so I was lucky enough to have a mentor come into my life that said, Patrick, you ought to look at mortgage note investing. And again, I said, well, what's a note? And for those of you that don't know, a promissory note is what you fill out when you borrow money from a bank to buy a house. And when you borrow from money from a bank to buy a house, they also make you sign a mortgage document. So there's two important documents when you buy a house with financing as a borrower. One is the promissory note. It spells out the terms of how you're going to pay that money back. And then another document's the mortgage, and it secures the physical property as collateral for the bank if you don't pay the loan back properly. And so when we're mortgage note investors, we're actually investing into and buying one of those promissory notes that is secured by physical real estate. And when I learned about this, it was confusing at first, and it may be to you, but I will just tell you this one thing. Mortgage note investing carries the three most important factors that investors usually search for when they're looking at any investment. People weigh safety, right? Is it a very risky investment? Is it on the safer side? Well, I'll tell you, mortgage note investing has what we call the big three. And these three things are hard to find in most other investments that you compare notes to, like the ones I was mentioning earlier. And those three things are, number one is security. And you get the security because the promissory note you've invested in is backed by a physical piece of real estate. So you actually have collateral there. Number two is yield. Sometimes our yields and our returns are fluctuating up and down based on the markets, and you're playing the itsy bitsy spider game with your portfolio over the years, and it's hard to have steady growth. Well, mortgage payments don't change if the markets crash. And so that mortgage payment that comes in every month, you collect it. And it's cash flow, folks, cash flow that can supplement your lifestyle, or that can be compounded. Okay. And that's the ticket, folks. Security, yield, cash flow. That's mortgage note investing. And I'm going to talk to you more about it right after this break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.